Nijayate mriyate va kadachin, nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuya. Ajo nitya sasvata yam parano, nahanyate hanyana mane sarire. For the soul there's never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. He is undying, eternal, unborn. He is not slain when the body is slain. I'm used to a different translation from an earlier edition by a different editor. Amajana Trimanandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Chakshun Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master has opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my most humble obeisances unto him. So much information, one verse of Bhagavad-Gita. That's the nature of transcendental knowledge. My spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, he would say that we could speak about one verse for days on end, because that's the nature of transcendental knowledge. It's not of this world. It's of the spiritual world. And therefore it's unlimitedly potent and full of unlimited meanings for our enlightenment. So this simple verse, for the soul there's never birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, is not come into being, and he will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. This is spiritual knowledge. This is religion, true religion. Not a cheating religion. We can generally see within the material world, even though there's so many philosophies and so many branches of religiosity put forward by man, the general problem is they are that. They are put forward by man. And even though there may be some small spark of spiritual inspiration that's coming from the transcendental realm, the motives of the deliverers of such knowledge sometimes obscure the meaning. That's not what you're going to find in the parampara coming from Krishna. That isn't to say that over time even pure Vedic knowledge, which is actually coming from the mouth of the Supreme Lord, does not become also obscured and lost because of the influence of man. You'll actually find later in Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna explains, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Wherever and whenever there's a decline in religious practice and the predominance of irreligion at that time, I advent myself. So whenever that happens, Krishna comes himself to put everything straight. Or he sends an empowered living entity that has transcendental understanding to rectify mankind when they get too far off course. Let's take, for example, Lord Buddha. Now, Lord Buddha came, and what was happening in society at that point in time was people, in the name of Vedic knowledge, because Vedic knowledge means coming from the transcendental realm, coming directly from Krishna. So people, in the name of the Vedas, were simply taking those particular parts of the Vedas that allowed them to sacrifice animals for their time. So they would sacrifice animals and perform the sacrifices as delineated in the Vedas just for their palates, so that they could, as a way to allow them to engage in meat eating. Now, there's always going to be a class of men that they're not going to find satisfaction in anything but meat. And therefore the Vedas do have particular sanctions for that class of men. But because that was not that was not the case at that point in time, that people were taking advantage of the Vedas to such an extent that they were engaged in unnecessary killing of animals. So Lord Buddha came, and Buddha just said, whoa, forget the Vedas. Now, Lord Buddha is actually Krishna himself coming as a different incarnation. And Krishna himself is saying, let's put the Vedas aside. Let's see, if we really want to have spiritual progress, we need to be nonviolent. So forget these sacrifices. Any sacrifice that mentions violence can't be a proper sacrifice. So let's abandon all sacrifice and let's perform ahimsa. Let's be nonviolent to everyone. So in that way, sometimes Krishna, in a particular circumstance, will send somebody or come himself to rectify mankind, even in contradiction to the Vedas. A very rare occurrence, but generally necessary in an extreme emergency. So, it's important that we understand, especially from this verse, our true spiritual nature. The Supreme Lord has three distinctive energies. He has his own internal personal self. He has his external material energy, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, and all these amalgamated together create all the varieties that we see within the material world. And then there's his marginal potency, which is of his spiritual nature, but because it's infinitesimal, it has a tendency to get bewildered by Krishna's external potency, by the Lord's material energy, which is basically a facility for us because somehow or other we have abandoned our spiritual nature. Our spiritual nature is such that we have the same characteristics of the Lord, of Krishna, or whatever name you want to give to the absolute being. With the same exact characteristics. We're eternal, we're full of knowledge, and we're full of bliss. But when we come into contact with the external potency, we become covered over, we become bewildered, and we lose sight of our true spiritual nature. So therefore, so much religion in the world to get people back on track. But the nature of Bhagavad-Gita, the nature of disciplic succession, the nature of the Vedas, is this knowledge is distinct from the other knowledge in that it's coming directly from the transcendental realm and it's not adulterated. It's coming directly from Krishna in pure disciplic succession. From Krishna, when the universe is created, he imparts Vedic knowledge to Brahma. So we can imagine that in the beginning of creation of a material world, a material universe, and there's unlimited amounts of material universes, but in the beginning of a creation of a particular universe, the Lord lies down within that universe, and from his navel a lotus grows. And on the top of that lotus, Lord Brahma is born, directly from a manifestation, an incarnation of God. So that's why they call Brahma Aja, unborn, like that word in this verse. We see the word Aja. So one of the terms for Lord Brahma is Aja, that he's not born like we're born. He's not born of a material, of a mother and a father. Through seminal, discharge. He's actually born from a lotus flower, from a navel of Garbhodakshai Vishnu, which is one of the Vishnus coming directly from Krishna. So Brahma's there, he's born, and he sees he's sitting on a lotus, and it's like, what's going on? He has no idea. He tries to figure out, where in the heck did I come from? And that's actually true. When we come to the human form of life, that is the beginning of self-realization. Atato Brahma Jignasha. Where did I come from? Why am I here? What am I doing here? That's the beginning of spiritual inquiry. And unfortunately, we can see, if we look even in this society now, how many people truly make it their life's mission to answer that question. It may go through their mind. They may see a little philosophy here and there. But do they really make it their life's mission to search out, where did I come from? Why am I here? And how can I end this situation? Most people say, well, I'm here now, be here now, and let's just enjoy it. Unfortunately, we can see from a transcendental perspective, if we can learn from people that are actually self-realized, we can see that there's not that much enjoyment here. Because for the soul, what's Krishna saying? For the soul, there's never birth nor death. Having once been, he never ceases to be. He's unborn. He's undying. He doesn't change when the body changes. Isn't that a joyful situation? All of our miseries of material existence come about because we relate with the body. It's just like you're driving your car down the road and somebody pulls out in front of you and you smash into them. And you jump out of the car and say, "You hit me." No. It's a car. You're driving the car. No one hit you. But we're so wrapped up in thinking we're the car that when it's hit, we think we're hit. Same way with the body. Somebody hits our body. You hit me. No, not really. This is a vehicle. We're using this vehicle. And what's happening with this vehicle, what's pointed out in the purport, it's changing. From boyhood to youth, to middle age, to old age. It dwindles, it's gone. But do we change at any time? We see we don't change. Even you take an old man on his deathbed, he's still thinking he's in the prime of his life. Just send in a pretty nurse. And immediately, let me enjoy. I used to enjoy when I was a young man. I can still do it. That's the nature. The soul wants to enjoy unlimitedly. Why? Because we're part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. He has unlimited facility to enjoy. He enjoys without the material body. He enjoys unlimitedly with all his lovers in loving exchanges and ecstatic emotions that we can't even comprehend within the material body. So, that's spiritual life. That's true spiritual life. And that's the whole purpose of Bhagavad-Gita. Gradually take us step by step to understanding, first of all, in the beginning of the Gita, Krishna is saying, you're not this body. Never was a time when you or I did not exist. As the soul continually passes from boyhood to youth to old age. All these verses, these are the essence of the foundation of spiritual understanding. And only by a grasp of these spiritual building blocks is there any hope of progressing in spiritual life. To simply adopt religious practice for betterment in a material situation is not going to completely solve our problem. We can become good people. We can become pious people, truthful people, honest, loving, caring, non-violent. We can adopt all these so-called religious principles, And of course, what's the result of those kinds of activities? They bring us piety, as opposed to going to the cinema and the liquor store and, the brothel. We can try to help man. We can feed the hungry. We can do so many, quote, quote, religious things. But in the ultimate issue, they have nothing to do with the soul. They're going to upgrade. We're going to get an upfit next time around. The body's going to be a little better, because that's the nature of this material world. We can see karma at work everywhere around us. And we need to see how that karma works. You do bad things, bad reaction. You do good things, good reaction. Good or bad reaction, as long as it's on the material platform, has nothing to do with spiritual life. Now, that isn't to say that within the material world there are three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And unless we at least rise ourselves to the platform of goodness, we can't even comprehend what is spiritual life. So there has to be some piety there before people even take to true spiritual inquiry. Atato Brahma Jignasa. Where did I come from? Where am I going? Why am I here? You have to at least have enough. You have to be at least out of the muck of gross sense gratification enough to be able to see the differences between good and bad. And at least have enough pious credit to be able to, adopt spiritual life, spiritual inquiry. But most of the religions of the world, they're teaching people, well, become good, become, honest, love thy neighbor, don't steal his wife, so many things, so many laws are there, which are laws which are basically coming from Krishna, because mankind can get so far off base that he doesn't even know the simply how to be a gentleman. But because they don't go further into development of spiritual knowledge, transcendental knowledge, the result of such religious activity simply places one in a more pious body. That pious body can live for thousands of years. You could have a body that lasts a long time. The heavenly planets, people develop all these yogic cities due to their piety and their advanced yoga performance. But it's just like a big bank balance. Even though we can be elevated to one of the heavenly planets, because within the material universe there are 14 divisions of planetary systems. We're right in the middle. Planet Earth. Mode of passion. Mode of passion, sweat, blood. What's the byproduct? An ocean of salt. Salt water. Sweat. Heavenly planets, there's oceans of milk. Hellish planet, there's oceans of liquor. People are continually intoxicated. So, even we go to the planets with the ocean of milk, still, once the pious, we've run out of all of our pious and spent all of the credits that we earned by being a good person, we end up back here. Or, worse, we're here and we become a complete debauch and we go to a hellish existence. Worse than that, we become so degraded and so wrapped up in material sense gratification that we let one of our senses predominate to the extent that we are forced into the animal species again. All I want to do is eat meat. Let me kill this for my tongue, let me kill this, let me kill that. All of a sudden I'm in a tiger's body. Why? Full facility. You wanted the taste of blood here. Mother Nature perfectly awards your desires. How do we determine our desires? How we act within this body. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad-Gita, whatever your consciousness is fixed on at the time of death, to that state you will attain in your next life. Now, when we say fixed on, just like they say before death your whole life flashes before your eyes, well, what if my whole life has simply been centered on alcohol? At the end of the day, all I think about is let me go and get my bottle of liquor and go home and drink it. And I've done that through my whole life. Now, what's going to happen when I leave? What's going to flash before my eyes? Because what's my mind been fixed on? 5 o'clock, I'm out of here, I can go home and I can have my shot. So that's the nature of an alcoholic, right? Well, what about a sexaholic? Or what about an eataholic? And we could go on and on. How many holics are there? A moneyholic. All these different attachments rule. We become adapted to one particular fixed mindset. At the end of life, material nature says, oh, you really want that? That's really what you want? There you go. Now you can have this body. So, the teachings of Bhagavad-Gita will touch upon all these things, upon the modes of material nature, so that we can see things in proper perspective. But the end of Bhagavad-Gita is to bring us to the point of true transcendental knowledge, not some fake religiosity, but true self-realization, where we can completely get out of the entanglement of material existence, which is what? Foreign to us. We're a spirit soul in a foreign land. And we can't enjoy here, no matter how much we try. That isn't to say we can't make some comfortable situation. But how comfortable can it be if in the end it's ripped away from us? It's always ripped away. Even I go to a heavenly planet and the lifespan is not 50, 80 years here, 100 years at most, but it's 100,000 years. Still, at the end of 100,000 years, what happens? The landlord comes along and says, time to move on. And Krishna's the landlord. And he's seated in our heart, and he's our best friend, and he's facilitating everything that we desire. All we have to do is fix the desire. We have to fix the desire. We have to rewire our consciousness to be in complete sync with His. First of all, never was there a time when we did not exist. We're eternal. We're not slain when the body is slain. And we need to think in that way continually and pull back from those things that are going to keep us wrapped up in material existence. That's true religiosity. That's true spiritual life. You have to pull the senses back. You have to perform yoga. But we have to perform that yoga that doesn't give us some temporary yogic city, some power, or some bewilderment to think that we actually are God ourselves, or that we're going to merge into some all-knowingness at a certain point in the future. We're already all-knowing. We're simply covered up by the Lord's external energy. And we're associating with that energy to such an extent that it's bewildering us. Just like on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna is bewildered about what to do and what not to do. I can't kill my relatives. I can't kill my teachers. You can't kill them. Krishna says, yes, you can't kill them because they're eternal. So then one would say, well, out of compassion, wouldn't one not want to kill their body? Yes, you wouldn't want to kill their body. But in a certain instance, there is no other way to rectify a situation. And that's what happens at certain times where society gets so far off track. And that's really the scene that is set at the beginning of Bhagavad-Gita. Because unless you properly enact Vedic religious principle, which is coming from Krishna himself, you're going to prolong the suffering of a sinful soul. So for the murderer, murder is the proper recourse. Otherwise, if, as we study Vedic knowledge, you can go into the Puranas and all the Vedas, and if you actually look to the Manu Samhita, the laws of mankind, you will find that if a murderer of another man is not immediately put to death and he's allowed to live out his life, his next life, first of all, the soul that he killed has to come back and kill him. That's the law of material nature. That's the law of karma. But if we take Krishna's higher law, the Vedas, and we enact that through the agency of proper administration, then the murderer is killed, his sinful reaction is wiped out, and he gets a next birth without that hanging over his head.
The capital punishment.
Capital punishment, yes. The problem is now mankind doesn't use the Vedas as a basis for their determination. And because of that, the whole thing becomes spoiled. Then you have a court system and you have so many things. But if you were a proper administrator and working under the direction of Krishna, then there would be no sin for the administrator, and there would be all good fortune for properly eradicating or enacting a reaction for sinful activity.
I don't know if I believe that. I find that hard to believe for me.
Yes, I understand. It's hard. When I first picked up Bhagavad-Gita, and I read this book many, many times, and I have, it's very difficult. Because here's Bhagavad-Gita, and Krishna is supposed to be God. And he's telling Arjuna, you have to fight and you have to kill people on the other side. And I'm like, whoa, what is this about? This is religion?
So we weren't supposed to take it literally.
No, that's the difference. That's the understanding. There is a class of men that take the Vedas and do not take them literally. But we will find always within the teachings coming in Parampara that all the Vedas are absolute truth. This is not an allegory. These are actually historical facts. This battle actually took place 5,000 years ago. You can go to India now and go to Kurukshetra where this battle took place. Krishna was actually present on this planet 5,000 years ago. The Lord himself descended. And the Pandavas were there, and Dhritarashtra. All these people are historic personages. And this is an actual narration of a historical fact. That's our understanding of Vedic knowledge. That it's coming down directly from Krishna. And this knowledge is the historical facts presented in the Mahabharata and the Srimad Bhagavatam and all the various Puranas are there to illustrate religious and transcendental enlightening narrations, but they're all based on actual events that took place. Otherwise, as Prabhupada points out, Bhaktivedanta points out in the purport, if Krishna is just another man, then what's the need? What's the value of Bhagavad-Gita?
Yeah, I think it's God.
And he has that ability to make the determination of what is right and what is wrong.
So it's basically an eye for an eye.
It's already an eye for an eye. Look at material nature.
I don't know. There's part of me that would like it to be.
But unfortunately it is. If you look at material, if you step back and look at material nature is already set up as an eye for an eye.
And the world would be blind.
Hmm?
And the world would be blind.
It's already there. And you will find when we come to the conclusion of Bhagavad-Gita, the 18th chapter, Krishna points out, I've already killed these people. It's already done. You can either cooperate with my program or not. Just like ourselves within the material world. Everything's already there. You know, as far as what's going to transpire. We can either cooperate with Krishna's program, become benefited, and become enlightened, and remove ourselves and experience our true spiritual nature, Satchidananda, eternity, knowledge, and bliss, in loving exchange on the transcendental platform, or not. But as far as what's going on in the material world, it's going on, and there's it's automatically going to happen.
There's a prayer too that when certain people, when they slaughter their own animals, and they say, I understand by doing this that in my next life you will come and you will do this to me also. And that's their consciousness. They still do it, but they do it with the knowledge that this is going to happen to them in their next life. So it's going to happen, but it's in the future. You're just simply wiping the slate. But the difference is the eye for the eye thing, and then the whole world will be blind. That's like a judgment of man. Who, we're so corrupt. Our system is so corrupt that it's no longer a just system, and it's like, I could shoot you, people could see it, but because of the system, there could be a technicality, and I would get off, and the opposite could be true. So that stuff it doesn't work anymore. The death penalty, so that's why we have a sick feeling about it, because you don't know if the person really did it, if it's honest, if they just had a good lawyer, if they had a bad lawyer. No, it's not an honest system.
I don't like the whole taking of life.
But see, that's also there automatically, because you have to understand there are 4 divisions of mankind: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. All right, and based on society naturally falls into these 4 categories. So the categories of the Brahminical class, the religious class, okay, the enlightened class, is nonviolence, cleanliness, truthfulness, austerity, mercy. This is also pointed out in the 18th chapter. If we go there, we can read the verse. These are the characteristics of the saintly people. Okay? Then these are the characteristics of the administrative class. They're let's read it, just so you can see. Krishna addresses this.
While you're looking for that, can I say something?
Yes.
Another thing is sometimes non-violence is more violent for a particular person than what would appear to be violent. Like the parent who, the parent is standing on the sidewalk and the kid goes to run out in the street and grabs the kid. Okay, so that might appear violent, but if they let the child go, then that letting go, the apparent non-violence, is actually violence. So in the same way, for certain acts, if you just let it go, then that's actually more violent than instituting what looks like violence.
Right.
So sometimes war looks, or the killing of the body looks like unnecessary violence, but it actually is liberating, and it's protection of that same entity. If you have a different view of it.
What page are you on?
So the characters of the different classes of men, Krishna explains in the 18th chapter. If you go to page 729. So you see there that the four classes of men are there. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras are distinguished by qualities born of their own nature in accordance with the material modes, O chastiser of the enemy. So this is Krishna speaking, Samo Dhammastata Sucham. So peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the natural qualities by which the Brahmanas work. This is a religious class. Now let's talk about Kshatriyas, the next class. What's their characteristics? What's their character? Because you look at everybody around you, they all have a character, right? Mm-hmm. So what's their character? Heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the natural qualities of work for the Kshatriyas. Farming, cow production, and business are the natural work of the Vaishyas. I guess I'm one of those. And for the Sudras, there is labor and service to others. Oh, wait, I guess I'm a Sudra. Archie tells me what to do all the time. But as you can see, these natural things are there. So when you say it doesn't sit right with you, of course not. Because you have the character of a religious person. You don't have the character of a man in battle. So killing doesn't sit well. But Krishna, this is a complete arrangement for society. And in society, there has to be administrators. There's got to be bushes. Not like him, but there's got to be administrators. Generally, it's a godly king. And where does he take his direction? He takes it from the Brahmanas, who are peaceful, non-violent, austere, and fully knowledgeable of religious activities.
Speaking of the God turns up every once in a while. Did anybody see? This is so ridiculous. I know you didn't, but sometimes I come home and I'm like, it's the TV. Prime time last night. Anybody catch it? Mm-hmm. Well, it was really fascinating because there is this guy out there called Jesus of the Suburbs. Have you heard about this?
No.
He's huge and getting bigger all the time. He is a guy who wound up in prison. He was in prison for a long time, and he, crook, stole, whatever, and had a vision. He was visited by the angels, and they told him that he was crazy. And so he is huge in Latin America, huge, and now he's coming into the United States. And what's fascinating about this guy is that he's into joy. Totally and completely. He's against all organized religion, and he smokes and he drinks, and I mean, it's the God everybody wants,
Well, they're good.
Yeah. So I was just spellbound by that. And he was. I had no idea. I had never heard of him. He grew up
coming to a theater near you.
He grew. I know. I mean, and it's like. I'm like, guys, people are really going to buy into this, like, big time. Oh, who knows? Maybe he is God. I have no idea. But
I do. Because that's what the Vedas tell us.
You think you are.
Because that's the distinction. That is one thing that you'll learn about as we continue to study Bhagavad-Gita and look at what is Vedic knowledge. As we purify ourselves and advance spiritually, truly spiritually, according to the Puranas and the Vedas, you actually will find out this is God, these are His characteristics, and this is when He's coming. And this is His father and His mother when He comes, and His aunt and His uncle. The Vedas give us all the details of the Lord's various incarnations. In full detail. So before Krishna came, everybody knew He was coming. And he also told the demigods, you all descend on earth, take birth in the family of the Yadus. I mean, there's so much, anyway, you could find out everything. You can have complete transcendental knowledge through Vedic.
Christ, though, never said he was God. So if this guy's saying that he's God, he's not.
He's saying that he has come back as Jesus. Jesus is the person that all of the Christians and the Catholics, etc., are going to. That's who they see as God, and so that is the word that he uses.
And therefore you can see that he's really, well, I mean, that's just that one thing alone. Because Christ himself proclaimed himself to not be God.
The distinction when you look at...
He is the Son of God.
The Son of God. Well, no, I'm not saying this guy's God.
I know, but I mean, people should just see that, you know?
People can't see, they want it so bad. But millions and millions
of dollars
are coming to Jesus at the supper.
Good.
I mean, he's going to be coming here any day.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm serious. It's fascinating. And he's letting you know, it's like, party, drink.
The cheaters, there's a thing called cheaters and the cheated. The cheaters and the cheated. Because people don't really want to engage in true spiritual activities. They want, you know, they either want to go to church and, you know, be yelled at by the minister and feel good so they can go back out and start with a clean slate and sin some more and go back to the week and be
That's why confession is so wonderful in the Catholic
Exactly.
Church. Yeah.
So, you know, the cheaters and the cheated. They don't want. They prefer a cubic zirconium to a diamond.
And he thinks that you can do no wrong because everyone in the afterlife, there will be no distinction between good or bad. So it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter. You will receive your karma here on earth if you commit a crime. You will go to jail. But as far as the afterlife,
okay, then you just need to ask him one simple question. Okay, look at me. I got this great body, and look down there in the fourth, and there are black children down there that are starving before they even hit 3 months of age. Why was I born here, and why was that soul born there? What's the afterlife of that?